Hi, my name is Arraya Hope, designer of the Glamor Blueprint. I am a woman of today, positioning myself for tomorrow. I am a designer. I do wardrobe styling, creative direction, and all in all brand crafting for myself, but I have done in the past for others as well.
You said brand crafting?
Mm-hmm. So basically, I do my website design, I do all of the modeling and just the marketing aspect of everything. So in the past, I used to do like a lot of branding for brands, which I think gave me the experience that I have now. And then at this time, I just fully focus on the business.
I love that. How did you get into that?
Jumping into the branding or jumping into like designing?
Jumping into when you said you used to do branding for other companies.
Well, really it started with modeling because everybody was always inquiring for me to just kind of push their stuff. So I kind of learned in that way, and I've always had a vision for marketing. I'm very analytical. I'm a Virgo, so we just tend to be like really
Y'all
detailed.
clean it.
Oh yeah, it's your birthday.
So yes, thank you. I tend to be really detailed, and when I was kind of like helping them build their brands, I feel like as I was doing that, I was really kind of learning the model of what it was on the business side of things because I'm the only person in my family that's an entrepreneur. So I didn't really get that business side of things. I did go to college, but I actually studied criminal justice, which is polar opposite of anything that I do now. Yeah. It's weird because I'm like, wow, whole degree in criminal justice and I do nothing with it. But it's okay. Went to college, had that experience. So college taught me discipline. My family had never had anybody that went to college, so I was a first generation college student. And it was more for my grandparents for me to get the degree. If I was gonna pursue law, it would be entertainment law, which is more like the contract aspect of things.
Yeah.
But I truly enjoyed fashion. Like I always knew that was the direction I wanted to go, but I was raised by them, so they're very old school by the book. Like, go to college, get a job,
like this is what you do.
all the, the steps of that way. So when I just decided, like, in my last semester of college, it was either I'm dropping out or I'm literally moving to Atlanta and I'm starting my business and I just got to finish online. So that's what I did. I literally paid triple
Why
cost.
Atlanta?
I feel like, and
where are you from?
I'm from Tampa, Florida.
Tampa,
Okay.
Florida.
So
Okay.
it's weird because I feel like everybody says this, but I knew that I didn't want to go to LA right away because obviously you jump in LA and it's like you're swimming with the
whole
sharks.
thing.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, Atlanta gets my feet wet. I actually was dating somebody at that time, so I was getting familiar with like the environment, and Atlanta was a lot different then. It was just a little bit more interactive, I guess, or conducive to somebody like learning. And I needed to jump into like high-end retail. So that's basically what I did was I got a summer job here before I moved here. And I was like, oh, okay, I love it. Like, I'm gonna do it. And then I moved in my last semester. And from that point, it was like, I went into Giuseppe, and then from Giuseppe into Saks, and then from Saks into Tyler Perry. And it was like, boom, boom, boom. It's kind of like, levels. It was a great like stepping stone for me because I feel like in LA, which I love LA, I enjoy visiting LA, but I didn't get that like homey feeling that Atlanta gives me.
Yeah.
That
So do you think you're gonna stay around here a little longer, or you still like have your plan, your timeline?
I'm ready to go.
You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Are you? Like tomorrow?
Like tomorrow. Like I honestly, if I'm like being completely honest, I'm ready to move to Europe. Like I want to do, if not a month, 6 months. Like I genuinely need that like creative, just freedom. I need to see the world. I need to just live some. I need to fall in love. I need to really like
I love it.
get
Can I go? Because you make it
Yes.
I want to go now.
That's honestly where I wanted to begin designing because I always wanted to manufacture out of Italy, Paris, somewhere that fashion was like next level. And obviously Europe is just elevated. New York is definitely a great place to be, but I just can't handle New York weather.
I can't handle it. Yeah, I feel you on that.
I was just like, okay, so Europe is like next on my list. I would love to say that I want to stay in state, but I don't. So
you want like an eat, pray, love experience?
Yes.
Like you ready for it?
Yes.
Are you planning it out already? Like, are you?
In my mind at this moment, before this year's over, I've said like, okay, I'm going. And I don't know if I'm gonna go on a one-way or what it is that I'm gonna do because I don't know what the world's gonna look like. So I'm like, part of me is super courageous and I'm like, I'm jumping, like, fuck it. Because I've always said that I wanted to either be dating somebody or with my best friend or something because going to a whole new country, you don't know anybody.
Yes.
And then they're also like, their weather's a lot different than ours. So I've heard like their suicidal rates are a little bit different out there. And I'm like, well, that's the last thing I want to do is like move to a whole country and then
be isolated.
Yeah, be isolated and then become depressed. Like, you know? So hopefully I visit before this year's over and then next year it's like, it's up. Because at this point I've curated my business enough to the point where I don't have to physically be in this space where I'm, you know, moving things out. It's like, I think I'm ready.
I love that for you.
Yes, speaking of the Glamor Blueprint, how did that come about? I have so many questions.
Funny story. So at the moment, I was in college. I was with somebody, and it was a very toxic relationship, and they ended up deleting my Instagram. And I was like, okay, well, when I come back, I want to come back with a business mold. Like, I genuinely knew that it was time for me to kind of make my lifestyle a brand, in a sense, because I always had interest in different creative aspects. And I felt like, okay, well, this is when Instagram first was like jumping, you know? So it was like, we can make money here. So when I came back in, I was like, okay, let's mold this into, I really wanted an app. Like, I was set on, okay, I want to create an app. So when I went in and I created the Glamor Blueprint, I was really intentional with the wordplay because I knew that it was going to be something that was going to be a business frame. And then from that point, I wanted to build off of it. I didn't want to go in and
just be one thing.
Yes. So I knew when I created the name, it was like an umbrella of what all was going to be underneath it. So that's why, like, right now it's like, okay, I'm designing and I've done styling and creative direction underneath it, but I love writing aside from that. And then I also am like super into architectural and just creative design of spaces. So I can definitely see interior design and just other aspects of things that I'm interested in. So yeah, that's basically where the mold came. 2017 is when I created the name, but then I actually made it like a business in itself. I want to say 2019. And then when we went into the pandemic is when I started designing like full time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how has entrepreneurship like been since 2019? Like, what are the highs? What are the lows? What is your favorite part about it?
So the highs would definitely be that it has shaped me to become a boss. Like, I'm beyond just a business boss. It's more of just who I am as a person. Like, I found myself with entrepreneurship because it taught me to stick with what I believed in and then to chase that thing regardless of whatever finances came out of that aspect. I just knew that this was something I was passionate about, and I just got my voice. I found my voice. I found what I'm interested in, and I really grew into like my spirituality. So entrepreneurship for me has been finding myself as a woman, I guess, and in doing so, I've created that into a brand. The lows of entrepreneurship, I wouldn't call them lows because I think everything's a lesson, and I feel like there's been so many takeaways for me that I've basically learned how to kind of mentor myself through things, me and God. I have to give God all praise for that because there's times where I've definitely been like, Lord, if this is not something I'm supposed to be pursuing, then let me know. Because you have those slow seasons, where you're just like, what do I do? Or, you know, you have manufacturing issues and things like that. So everything's just not smooth sailing. But I would definitely say that things that I've learned along the way were financial management, brand expansion, and kind of putting myself out there, staying out of my head, because you know when it's your brand, it's very personal to you. You kind of have one frame of mind, but you're also catering to the entire world. So that I didn't expect out of the country to be, you know, at my leisure so fast, or, you know, people all across the world. It's kind of like when you have a vision for something, it's like, I know that this thing is special, but then when God puts all of the motion behind that business, it's like, you thought that this was just your passion, but this is literally your purpose. So basically shaping that space. So I think entrepreneurship has really molded me as a person, and then also just opened so many doors for me.
So you take the highs with the lows and just bring it together into like what it is today. Speaking of manufacturers, like me coming from like a design space, like I know all too well just like the journey of finding the right people domestically, internationally, that kind of thing. How is that for you, and like what did you go through? Did you ever sew yourself or make patterns or anything like that, or do you have everyone do it for, like manufacture it?
So I personally don't know how to sew. I know how to sketch and I know how to make the patterns, but the actual sewing I didn't learn until I started being like hand in hand with my manufacturer, which is, I've never sat behind the machine and done the pieces, but now I understand like, okay, I need this top stitch, I need this like in princess stitching. Like I've learned what I guess went into it, just because, as I said, I'm very detailed.
All the details.
The process of finding and then also staying with the same teams has definitely been a journey, because you know, I'm a person that when I begin with you, I kind of want to keep you, like I want to grow with you, and I've learned, you know, everybody has a season and you learn things in this place and then it's time to go bigger here. Because when I first started, I had manufacturers outside of the country, and then I needed more hands-on when the pandemic happened, because out of the country ended up shutting down because the pandemic was so hectic over there, and that was so unpredictable that it was like, okay, what am I going to do here? So I actually ended up working up with one single seamstress, and I don't think that she knew the magnitude of what my business was. So I was like, I know that you do, like tailoring here and there, whichever, but I have a whole 6-figure business. I need you to basically like help me keep afloat. Yeah. Like, please, I got your back, whatever. So we really grew my first collection. Well, yeah, I'll call it my first collection. Unconventional. Okay. That was a collection where I created the gladiator tops, and I really got into the jackets. And those were the collections that I really learned what I wanted and also how creative I could be, because it just came from me just sitting there looking at scraps and then me turning those scraps into garments and then being very avant-garde and becoming what they were. Now, with the manufacturing, it's just been a process of sourcing which country you want your fabrics to come from, which has the best price points, then who can actually work with the actual fabrics, who can actually keep a system going that's, frequent and able to withstand because you have different seasons, I guess I would say. So I've had seasons where it's been really hectic, and it's like, okay, this one manufacturer can't handle all of production, you know? So I definitely have different ones all over for different things, but it's been a process. I'm actually going into a new process of gaining new ones, and I'm excited. Yeah, that's exciting. I'm nervous though, because it's basically like starting over, but you have to. Like, in order to get bigger, you have to. So,
are you starting completely over, or are you just kind of like edging your way out?
So I basically edged my way out when I wrapped up this last collection, because I felt like it was just time. You always know, like, okay, this vision has peaked where it is meant to with who it is here, and I won't ever say that it's on ice with these people, but I just think that I need something different, and I know where I'm trying to take this brand, and price point wise, and also just creatively, I need people that can produce what I need, but I need it in country. So I took several months to find in country ones, and now it's just about like funding it all on top of that, because funding it is the fun part.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you said you were like working different jobs, and then you said you just like
went
totally took and then there's times when seasons are slow. Like, what do you do? Like, what is the supplement to the business at that time?
So one thing I can say has definitely kept my business afloat is me just learning how to transition my passions in other areas into lucrative profit. So I love jewelry, which I have on now, and also just writing, like I mentioned. So I actually started designing journals, and I learned like through the seasons where I was creating garments that I really wanted to commit to, and I didn't have the time to basically get into fast fashion, because I didn't want my brand to become this boutique style of a brand, or just to be just dropping when I didn't feel, creative. I wanted to commit to something, create the quality that I wanted to see out there, and then also I needed it to be red carpet and stage ready, you know? And for that season, it was like, okay, well, what are we gonna do in between time to make this profit? Because it's basically like, when I jumped in, I didn't expect it to go 6 figures in 6 months. Like, it was instant. And the more money that you make, you come with more problems, and then it's also just a different demand. So with that being said, it's like you can't go from this peaking and then, plummet at that point. It's like keeping a consistency, because you want to go on $1 million track. And in order for me to keep that consistency, I had to learn how to just spread my wings in other areas and learn how to market them that was authentic. And one thing I can say that I've always stuck to is just sticking to myself. Like, I never felt like, let me go by this business mold because I see this aesthetic is working in this way for other people. I think that that's what attracts my audience, is because they understand, like, oh, this is her. Like, these are things that she genuinely believes in. Like, I'll sit in nature and I'm genuinely meditating and writing, and you know what I'm saying? I'm really eating, breathing, and sleeping this thing. So when it's like I'm selling it, it's now like you can feel the energy in that. You can see that this is something that's beyond just making money. So that has been what has kept me afloat in the seasons of dropping. And then I would also say not limiting myself, because I get very bored so fast. So I could put out a suit, and by the time that the suit is out, I'm like, I'm over it.
You're over it.
And it hasn't even gotten enough. Like, it basically, I had to start looking at my garments as babies. So it was like, you need to give this baby time to become a toddler. And then from a toddler, become a child, and then from a child become a teenager. You know, you have to give it legs. Like, it has to be able to grow. And in order for it to do that, in order for you to do that, you have to show it in different ways. You have to market it.
You would drop it and be over it.
I would drop it and be over it. Like, when I say,
by the time you drop it, you've already been with it for 3 months.
Absolutely, because you know how much goes into it coming out. So when people see it, it's like, oh my God, this is so great. But when I drop it, I'm like, thank God. Like, it's been, you know, forever. And I had to learn, like, there was my first year, I had to learn how to sit in my accomplishments, because I felt like I was not destination happy, but I felt like when I would accomplish things, it didn't feel like I accomplished something. It felt like
it was just like a check off the list. Yeah.
And it was just because you're just constantly going, that you've kind of like numbed yourself out from your experience of things, which is why I stayed so like tuned into my spirituality come my second year, because I felt like if I committed to something within myself and I knew what it was that I wanted to change and what I wanted to get out of my experience in the process versus the success in the end, then I knew that I would be fulfilled regardless of how anybody responded. And I feel like that was my greatest decision, because regardless if a garment does great or a garment doesn't do anything, I still feel all of, you know,
because
what it was.
Because you enjoyed the journey, and you made sure that you like had this holistic approach to the success. I always talk about that.
We always talk about that.
You've got to, because it gets to a point where when things really do pop, it's like, now you have to tell a story. And when you're telling that story, you don't want the passion gone. You know, you want to actually be feeling like that fire. I personally have to feel like I'm drowning in the fire. Like, it has to feel it's like I need to be liberated. So throughout the time of me creating is when that happens, which is why I learned how to like story tell as I was creating, so that when it is time for me to drop, it's like, okay, all the details are there because she literally documented throughout the whole plot. Like,
so you don't have to try to remember that feeling when you first saw the fabric or you first created the silhouette. Like, you've documented it. So it's there for everyone to enjoy. You can tap back into it.
It's there. Like, from the beginning, I've been recording. I just personally haven't put it out yet, because I feel like, you know, Kanye took 30 years before he released his documentary. I feel like I went from working a 9 to 5 to becoming an artist. And it was like I always was an artist when I was doing styling, in a sense, but it was never my personal vision where I have complete total control. So when I have complete total control over my brand and I can do whatever it is that I want, I learned myself as a person, becoming an artist and giving my inner child, you know, everything that she wanted. It was like relearning myself again. And I feel like in documentation, I have to see myself through all those seasons, because it went from me learning, like, this isn't just inspiration, Arraya, like, this is you literally breaking generational curses while you're doing what it is that you're doing.
Powerful.
And you really learning, like, how to express yourself naturally and honestly and authentically to however God sees your purpose to be, without any limitation anymore. So it's like so much was, like, in the beginning, I didn't realize that that's what was happening until I realized after, when I would read over my writing and I would just analyze all the details of things, and I was just like, yeah, this needs space. Like, I can't just jump in and say, like, I know that you're gonna love this because I know that you wanna know this information right now and how I did this and all these things, but me as a person, like, me being the artist, this is my story. So me telling my story, I want this to be the most authentic version of my story, and the only way I can do that is to see myself through different versions and be my best author, so.
I love it. I'm inspired.
Me too.
I'm so inspired.
I'm like, I'm trying to get my shit together.
No, I really love that. Speaking of, take it back to, you were saying that in the beginning, it was never your vision. It was like you were helping someone tell their story.
Yeah.
And how was that like working for other companies, working on their team, or being involved, and just like, how was that for you?
Can I go deeper into that?
Yeah, of course.
Also, like, comparing it to your life now, and you have, you know, you're your own boss. Like, can you look back and say that it's just not meant for you? Like, do you work better with people, or do you fully enjoy, like, being your own?
So I love being my own artist and just having my own space and having my teams that, you know, my tribe. But I will say that I always have so many ideas, and I definitely miss and do enjoy when I am able to work, because there's other brands that I work with now, and I do their creative direction silently. I do love kind of showcasing those ideas, because I'm a person that I think the vision is beyond just what I can create for my brand. I think that it's more of allowing people, me being myself, and then allowing people to be themselves throughout their brands. And sometimes, I mean, when you're working with certain brands, it's not necessarily a self brand, but it's more of a mission statement or what it is that you want community wise. I think that God has given me the gift of feeling beyond just myself and knowing like, okay, this is something that the community needs, or this is something that I see I needed in my journey. Let me try to create this in this way because there's a bigger budget for this person to be able to kind of execute that in that way. So not possessing the storylines and really just kind of allowing my artistry to kind of live on through whomever.
Yeah.
I think that it's really important to understand rather than to be understood. And I feel like once I get that understanding from God, like, okay, this is something that I want to see done in the earth, or this is something in this dimension that I think that you can put out there. I feel like you really have to listen to God because it's beyond just a trend, and it's beyond just fabrics or just telling a story. It's really just like allowing people to connect with themselves, and also just connecting with their ancestors and connecting with just, seeing love in its purest form in other ways. Because in my mind, like, this is beyond just fashion. This is beyond just, I enjoy looking fly and, whomever. I'm a person that's like, if on the inside it's not full, if I am not in alignment, then I don't give a fuck what I look like. I feel like with other brands, I have the beauty of being able to exercise the parts of my creativity that I don't get to do in my brand in totality. So because I'm my business owner and I am a creative at the same time, dually you get exhausted because it's like, okay, you're running the business, you're packing the orders, you're answering emails, you're doing all these things. So you don't have that same creative freedom that you get when you just work with a brand who already has that team set in place. And all I have to do is just come here with the vision. I get to be an artist, just a complete artist, So that's the enjoyment for myself. Even with certain clients that I style, it's just like, I get to just get things off that I don't feel anymore. Like every day when I wake up, I don't want to look like X, Y, and Z every day because I'm creating left and right. Or not even that, but I'm just not worried about what I look like. I'm honestly just in nature, or I'm just relaxing, and I've learned how to be still. And so with my clients, I've been able to just kind of create an image, and I personally don't love styling.
Okay, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, it's a hectic job.
Was it the returns, or like making sure the clothes don't get messed up, or like
not even
the budgeting,
that? I think what it is when you have a passion for something and you have a vision behind it, it's like, when you have a client, they also have a vision for themselves, and they want, a certain execution to be done for themselves. So it's just about like finding that balance of what is the creative freedom that I can get in this, and then also what is something that is applicable for you and your image and where you are. You know what I'm saying? Because when you're putting somebody down a carpet, they're doing like, if they're an actress or all the different things, they don't get the same, flexibility that I get as an artist who's myself. I can do whatever it is that I want to do. And I just think that sometimes it can be a little stunting on my creativity here and there. So I just take it in doses versus just, this is what I want to do as a full-time job. Because it's a job. Like it's between fittings, between running through all of the different, garments and shoes and whichever, returning them, making sure nothing's damaged, or, them actually being convinced to want to get these pieces. It's just the whole thing. Showrooms, it's a lot.
And sometimes they want you, do you want a stylist or do you want a personal shopper?
Exactly. Like, and that's the difference, is that a lot of times it can turn into a personal shopper versus being a stylist, and that's where you don't get the creativity anymore. Because it's really like you want an everyday style, which is cool. Like, it's not a problem, but you just have to take those things in doses, because while I am creating a collection or while I'm creating a garment, I've learned like that time period for me is so, like that time period is sacred energy. Like it's really like at that moment I am
birthing a baby.
Yes. So it's like everything's my muse, and I'm also like transitioning in energy at the same time as well. And
that is so deep.
If I'm just working, hectic all the time, and all I'm doing is worried about what somebody else looks like or what something else for the world is, I don't get that attention that I need to be still and really just hone in on what I need to heal or what it is that I need to bring to life in something. And I had to really learn, like, for me, it was more than the money. And it's really easy to get caught up in the money and the hype of things. It's really like, wow, the money's getting really good. Like, I should just stay here. But I also feel like as a person mentally, I'm not as clear as I used to be. Like, I'm not able to just sit down and really hear myself. My intuition's not as strong as it once was because I don't have that moment of meditation for me to really just have a slow day, an easeful day into something. So it's really just been a happy medium of a balance and learning what works for me and what doesn't. And I'm just grateful that I'm able to communicate to whomever it is that I work with and vice versa. And I think that we just have a clear relationship. It's just an alignment of personalities and spiritual journeys and just learning, like, I'm appreciative of having you in my space and vice versa. And when it's that season for you of going in and really becoming what it is that you need to be, I give you that grace and that space, and I'm celebrating you and supporting you. And then when you have that time, girl, I need you, you know?
Yeah.
And vice versa, because, I mean, I have a client, she's an actress, she has to hone in, she has to become a whole new character.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, you have to really, like, take time to really, you know, become who that character is. And I get you need me, because it's like, you don't have that time to be in the malls and figuring out what it is that you need to do. So it's really just finding that medium of knowing how to turn things on, turn things off, and knowing when you need that space and that readjustments in certain seasons. Because sometimes people think they want something and then they see something else, and it's like, but you didn't say that. Like, we're going in a totally different direction here. So one thing I like to do is I just like to study. Like, I'm really big into like music and just film and just storytelling. In that sense, I really like studying just time periods and just seeing what the world was like at that moment, or, you know, just that full creative moment. So I like to create like vision boards and saying like, hey, look, so this is what I think. Say for instance, you're like, okay, I'm doing a carpet on X, Y, and Z, and I have this coming up that I need basically to use this as the publicity, or this to be like the driving force of, wow, you know, she's about to be in a movie and we need to start paying attention to her, kind of thing. Yeah. And so for me to do that, it's like, okay, well, I want to basically tell a story through you. Like, I want people to see who you are as a person, and then I also want them to see just the direction that you're elevating into, but I want that to be done in an artistic way. And sometimes people aren't as deep as me. Yeah. So it's like,
clearly they're not. So like, girl, I just need to look.
Yeah. So yeah, they're just like, you know, like, Ray, sometimes I just need, you know, X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, I get it. But that's why I say I have to take it in doses, because I'm like, I don't get to get this whole, you know, thing out. Yeah. So that's really the main reason why I just try not to fully engulf my life into styling. I never wanted to be a stylist. Like, it was the one thing I would not mind assisting. Like, when I was up and coming, I only wanted to assist one person. It was like, okay, if I assist one person, because I just wanted to learn like what their creative process was like. I really enjoy being around true artists because I just get to see how they express themselves. And for me, that's inspiring, because obviously it's like a mirror. You get to see more of yourself and what it is that you truly enjoy and what you know, and also just mentorship. I didn't really have that growing up. Like, I didn't have somebody to kind of just say like, this is how you do this, and this is how you do this. So for me, it was like, okay, either I'm going to be that person to others as I come up and learn throughout the process, or I'm going to get a mentor that's so strong that I would be inspired by. And most times I'm not inspired by many, if I'm being honest. I'm morely just like, I enjoy what you do and I see you, but I just
that inspiration.
Like, inspiration for me is I gotta feel it. And there's just been very far and few that I could feel like, okay, I want to assist you, or, you know, I want somebody to be my mentor. But I definitely, in this season of my life, have asked God, like, whomever it is that you feel like is able to create provision over the direction that it is that I'm going, like, at least bring them into my space for me to learn, because I feel like I'm always that person that's implementing and teaching, and I think that it's important that you're not the smartest one in the room. Like, you need people that can teach you something for you to grow and become. So I know that there's just levels that I'm trying to reach that I personally haven't reached yet, and I would rather understand and grow and learn, like, the logistics, and not even logistics, but hear the experiences. Like, I'm a OG girl. Like, I want to hear all the stories. You know, because for me, it's just like, that's how you learn. Like, that's longevity. That's longevity. In the game, you know, like, that's skin in the game. And I feel like the only way for you to know is through experience. So if I personally don't have that experience, then I need to go to somebody. And I think that it's important that people take that moment in their journeys to know when it's time to do that too. Because we, especially entrepreneurs and women, we take on so much on our shoulders, and we're so used to being that person that has to call the shots, and we have to be assertive, and we have to be all these different ways, that we don't really get to relax and just say, like, I just want to be a student, you know? Like, I just want to fully just be a student and just experience this moment without it being something that has like a business aspect side of things, or that I have to, you know, do this so perfect that, you know, it's eyes and ears on me, you know, with this thing. So I feel like
always having to be on.
Yeah, you always have to
do something
on.
great, and they assume that greatness needs to come every morning.
Like
this morning I'm meditating.
Exactly. And I feel like that's the one thing that I think I have found that God, when I start to kind of make those footsteps, I feel like God always just creates provision and divine steps in all that I'm doing. And I think that he sent me people that in small ways I can hear messages, because I think there's God in everything. You just have to be listening, and you have to be paying attention to what it is that you see. So I feel like that's why clarity is so important for me, because I know when an angel is speaking to me and they're like, okay, look, so this is something that it doesn't seem like this is imperative to your journey, but if you pay attention to what this person did and how this played out, then this is something you can take away from that, where in their mistakes and in their hardships or whichever, note this is something that you need to pay attention within yourself. This may be a weakness that you find yourself to, you know, encompass and run across, because it's easy to make the money, it's harder to keep the money, and it's harder to grow with the money, and it's also harder to keep a team. I think that it's dope to say like I'm a boss, but I feel like bosses make other bosses, and I think like Hove is a person that's a great person to see, or even Beyonce. And I mean, there's other references. I love Whitney Houston as well, but I feel like anybody that I would look up to and say like I enjoy their creativity, but I also enjoy their business model, it would be people that have done for others, because the hand of the giver is never empty, ever. And so it's just about like knowing I can't always be the boss all the time. Like I need to, I had to step back and I had to learn. And those bosses learned from somebody, you know? So
how do, like in a world like this where we are now, it's like social media, it's like, it feels like we're always consuming something, whether we want to or not. And like, how do you get the clarity? How do you slow down? Like, how do you be still? Like, what do you say? Like, what are the steps to actually creating that space for yourself? So many people don't know how to do it. I've been working on it for years, and sometimes I feel like I'm faking it till I'm making it kind of vibe. But I know that's the first steps of just like putting yourself in this space and saying, this feels weird. That I'm just sitting here quiet looking at it, but this is what I need. Like, how did you get to the point where you can you turn it on? Like,
so before, when I first got into entrepreneurship, we were in the pandemic, and you know, we had to sit with ourselves. And when you're able to sit with yourself, you realize like, okay, I thought that I was evolved in this way, or that I had everything together in this aspect. But now that I'm sitting here with my solitude, there's things that I need to work on, because I've learned my codependency issues in something, or I've learned just how I'm possessing something to have such control and power over what direction I think that things are going. I had to really create a new system. So there's this book, it's Atomic Habits. I would recommend it to anybody. Yes, I would recommend it to anybody that needs to learn how to create systems and not to reach goals, because I feel like the system is the most important thing. That's what
it's like the ritual.
It's not even ritual. It's more of, think about like in your everyday, like when you wake up, you say like, okay, I want to go to the gym, I want to eat clean, I want to, you know, run my business and all these things, but how do I get that going every single day? How do I stay consistent with that? It's literally just creating a system and a routine, but not necessarily a routine, more of intentionality in every day and knowing what that day needs. So if tomorrow I wake up and I say, okay, I want to get a lot done, what am I going to do intentionally to make that happen? In order for me to do that, I have to listen to what is necessary. So if my body is exhausted, I need to sit down and I need to rest, because if I overexhaust myself, I'm not gonna be able to get anything done. And sometimes there is no work in work, you know? It's literally just sitting there. That is the work, it's just to be. So I feel like throughout my journeying, in the beginning it was a lot harder for me to feel like it was a priority, because the world tries to teach you like you should be working hard every single day, and you should be doing all these things, and you should be spreading yourself thin in all these ways, because you're not working hard enough and you're not doing enough. And when I did that, I was exhausted. I was so sick because I just wasn't taking care of myself in the way that I felt like was conducive to my lifestyle, and also just who I was as a creative and an artist and a writer. It was just like I didn't have that mental clarity, that alignment with self. So it was necessary for me to basically be like, look, I know it doesn't make any sense to the world that I need to sit in nature for however long I need to sit in nature, but this is what is working for me. And it is not even about how long it is anymore. Now it's just like feeling the sun, touching grass, like genuinely just free things that you don't have to go out and buy, and you don't have to go out and do like any work for it, but it's here. And I've learned like the earth, and it's weird because I've always said like if you talk to trees, like you learn a lot. And I used to do it, and I just thought that it was something that I personally was having in my experience. But as I grew to do those type of things, I learned like people that were spiritually in alignment also did the same things. Because if you think about it, like the trees have weathered so many different storms, and they've been through so many different things. They have things to teach you. And granted, you're not going to hear direct, communication. But what it is you're opening yourself up to receiving something beyond your personal experience, and knowing that there is a higher purpose and a higher calling on whatever it is that you're asking for. And the trees and earth just letting, this sounds crazy, I know.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, because I'm like,
I'm here for it.
Yeah, anytime I say this, like, I also have this conversation with my family, like, oh gosh. But with myself, I know when people get it, you really get it. But genuinely, when you like talk to water, because I always have this like direct connection to water. Like I always have to be by water. My hands have to touch water, my feet have to touch water. And I didn't know what water meant to your spiritual journey and who you are through alignment. So I would always write, and I would always like put it in the water. And I realized like my manifestations it was like instant. And that's not for me to say and somebody to think like, okay, if I go put this in the water, like this is what's happening.
Right.
But it's really like I learned in spirituality, like there is mothers and fathers and all things that you can have support you throughout your journey that are here for you, that are free, that are forcing you to sit still and learn like this is your ancestry. Like this is you growing and connecting and knowing yourself and cleansing your energy and knowing what your chakras are and knowing when they need to be opened and knowing when you need to take a spiritual bath and knowing that there is just a moment of stillness that's necessary for you to get to that next season. Yeah. So when you're like intentionally taking time to sit and rest. And that's something that I've been doing as of recently. At least when my birthday came, I always feel like every year when my birthday comes is like an energetic upgrade for me. It's like, okay, we need to kind of rid yourself of all the habits and all the things that you had before and kind of move into this next direction because this elevation's coming and you have to be prepared. Like if you want to keep it, you have to be prepared. Yeah. So I feel like I always go into fasting and I really just try to hone in on what makes me comfortable. And I feel like, because there's no comfort in the energetic upgrades at all. It's basically like shadow work and crying and
dragging you by your hair.
Dragging me by my hair, which I don't even have, but it's like
that's the
I'm going through it. And it's like, the only way that you can really find that purposeful is if that you really give that thing space and you see like, wow, I needed to actually bring attention to this thing because I've been working so much and these orders have distracted me from the fact that, girl, you're heartbroken at this moment, or you know what I'm saying? Like you have mother wounds you need to work on, or you have all these things. So me taking those seasons of rest, and even now, me really applying like taking care of my body, because I was doing so great when I first went into the pandemic. It was like I was working out every day, I was eating so clean, best shape ever. And then I got comfortable and I got bored with the routine and I kind of took a break and I ended up completely doing the opposite to where I stopped eating and I was overworking, and it was to the point where I was making myself sick. Like I couldn't even keep up with what it is that I needed to do. So it was like making that necessary time to say like, no, you need to really become like not a nutritionist or an herbalist, but you need to really focus on what your body needs and learn that it's beyond just, your chakras here, but we have so many chakras within our body. We hold so much trauma in different places in our body. So I had to really go in and like study the body. I had to learn like, okay, you store trauma in your hips and your back, when you get all this tension in your back, what this means, and just had to like rid myself of the simple things that you can do. But
who are your teachers at this point? Like, do you have like teachers, or is it just like books and just like
books? I would honestly say books are my best teacher. I definitely feel like those that I follow like on social media and things like that, they have, their own methods of things. But I feel like when you're in your spiritual journey, it's just really private. Like it's really like one of those things where it's not meant for everybody. It's just meant for you to kind of understand. And when you do get to a place of teaching, it's a natural teaching. It's like, I'm not saying like, hey, this is how you do this, you know, but really like
just leading by example.
Yes, leading by example. So I think that for me, reading and spending time in nature has been the best teacher, because I feel like nature has taught me so much. Like I think that it has shown me, first of all, my name's like Arraya Hope, and I never understood.
I was like Array of Hope.
Yes. And until I was really like joining my spiritual journey and really like uncovering, because when I grew up, like it was more of a religious thing. Like I grew up in a household where, you know, you went to church and, you know, you spoke of God in this way, but it was by the Bible, everything, not really like a spiritual walk of an everyday lifestyle kind of thing. You know? And for me, when I kind of connected with nature, it was like I learned all of my ancestry within what generational curses I was breaking, and just like how to withstand things that I feel like were meant for other people to be able to walk. So it's basically like I'm running through this thing so that you can walk behind me and open up this door. And basically like I'm building this space in a sense, but I need to make it a comfortable place, because when I was growing up like that, I never had that. Like I didn't have an artist around me. I didn't have an entertainer around me. I didn't have anybody that was basically feeding life into like my different passions that I had at that moment. So I created like an inner house within myself, and that's the way that I became like a really great writer, I guess. I don't want to say great, but I just learned how to use great expression in that sense, because there was no way of me doing it like physically and being reassured at that time. So I was kind of hiding it. It was like I have all these different talents that I can do, but I am basically sitting on my hands with it because I don't have the resources, and I also don't have people around me that are getting it. So it was like I was really quiet for a lot of my life. And
I want the stories to be told about the holistic part of life that people are just ignoring.
Yeah. I think that it's just become so normalized, especially with social media like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. It's like there's this aesthetic that's like selling, and it's like, okay, this is the only way that I'm going to make it. If I don't, you know, do these things, then I'm not going to be received. And it's like I had to tap out of a matrix that I didn't even know existed.
I feel like I'm in that space.
Yes.
Like tapping out and then realizing like, of course it's a judgment-free zone, and then realizing like you used to be in it. You used to be the one encouraging it. You used to be the one, you know, taking it in and also putting it on others and not even knowing. And then like you're taking a step out and it's like, what the fuck?
Right.
Yeah, I'm in the what the fuck.
Right. The what the fuck stage, I'm not going to lie, the what the fuck stage doesn't go away, because I feel like you realize.
Thank you for that.
No, I know. I'm being honest. I know, I'm just being honest.
You start being more comfortable with the what the fuck.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's what the fuck? Oh,
It's like fuck stage to where I'm silent and I'm just like I'm just so aware of every fucking thing, and it's like.
But see, the thing is heavy is the head that holds the crown. So once you become so aware, you realize how unaware everybody is, and not saying that in a sense of like judgment or you're better. Yes, but really a discernment. And it's like once you are able to pay attention to things, now it's how to turn those things off so that you're able to still function in a regular life, because you'll become so like, I definitely had a phase where I was just like once you really like uncover and really learn, you don't want to project your learnings onto others, because I think that people's experiences are their best teachers, and it's perception all in all, because there's multiple ways that things can be said and done, and they all can exist within that same experience, and different takes are coming from that. And that's why I say I think that there's God in everything, because I think that God speaks in different ways to other people. And I think that it's important when you're becoming aware is understanding that the more that I create safe space for myself, I create safe space for somebody else to be themselves. So once upon a time, I didn't know anything. So when this person doesn't know anything, the last thing that I want to do is be an enemy or a villain to this person when they're, you know, beginning their journey. So it's learning that community is such an important factor in our spiritual journeys. And it really taught me like compassion. Like I think that I became the softest version of myself when I learned how to forgive, and I really learned how to communicate. I used to think that I spoke really well because I was a great writer. I thought that I expressed myself really well, but I learned that I expressed myself the best in writing, but in actual communication and connection, I was a little cold. Like I was basically not there, and it was because I created that room within myself to kind of create comfortability for me to
be alone
and really understand what it is that I'm going through, that I didn't know how to be present with others in that same way. Like I feel like I kind of got so comfortable with not having people that heard me that I felt like it was always going to be in that way. So when I grew up and I started to get people that actually could see me, I was hiding from the light so bad. It was just like people are like, what's going on, Arraya? Like, you know, you have so much support here. Why are you not open to receiving the love? Like, why are you pushing it away now? And that's when I learned, like, the compassion of what people do when they're in pain and when they're, you know, going through traumas and things like that, because it shows up in different ways. You know, for me, it was like, I show up so confident, but then why don't I feel comfortable in this space when people are embracing me and loving me and all these accomplishments are happening and I don't want to acknowledge them? I just basically want to act like they didn't happen because I don't want too much attention. I don't want others to feel like I am better or bigger than them in this way. And it always just like an inner conversation of programming, because I mean, my mother struggles with mental health issues, which is why I think I'm really heavily invested in just holistic care versus like medicine on the body and things like that, because I've just watched when I was growing up, she has a drug addiction, and I just kind of watched how it deteriorated her mental capacity and really just her experience in life. And it was a lot of forgiveness and a lot of just growing and understanding, like, you're no better than the next person because you handle your experiences differently. So it's like mental health for me is like, I think that we often, especially in a social media era, point the finger at when it's okay to express mental health and then when it's not. So it's basically like, okay, in this way it's not reflecting that this person has depression or this person has X, Y, and Z going on. So let me create a safe space for this person to feel like they can be all that they are, even through their pains and their traumas. And I feel like I didn't learn that until I had that in somebody to be patient and just honest with me and give me that space to be. And I think that I really learned as I started to kind of battle my own mental health issues, because when I started therapy, it was like, you are so used to being like the self-aware person, and you're so used to figuring it all out, that when you have somebody that has like the answers to help mold you and actually bring light to those things that you've really like been suppressing, it scares you. Well, at least it scared me. And I was just like shying away from the attention of, wow, like maybe you're depressed, Arraya, or maybe you have mother wounds that you know, don't want to acknowledge because you don't want to hurt your mom's feelings, or you don't want to hurt your family's feelings with how you were raised, because you love them and you know they were trying their best, but you along the way have gotten scars that you're projecting in your other relationships, or you are pushing away or creating these problems or attracting these people because you're not giving attention to these things. So when I started therapy, it was like, oh girl, we're getting into the nitty gritty.
It's like, okay, we're here.
We are here. So I only had a few therapy sessions before I was like, okay, I'm not ready to unpack all of this stuff at one time, because as a creative, it was like weighing on me, because in my personal life, I feel like, what the fuck? Like, who am I anymore? You know, like, it's like trying to find yourself again. And then also like showing up like creatively to the world and trying to understand my purpose, finding that God was using that imperfection to teach people, and for me to become comfortable with that imperfection, and giving space to that for others to realize that it's your imperfection that is used and not your perfection. Because we always look at, well, I don't want to say we always, and I don't want to speak for everybody either, but often, at least in society, we think that, at least even in the church, you'll see it, like when you are in the system of the church, it's like, oh, I'm better, I'm superior, whichever. But then let's say you have the janitor in the building who is also very connected to God, and we're thinking that we're in a higher space than this person. And this person is literally in these rooms to bring you life. I literally had, when I was moving from the place that I live in now into another space, well, excuse me, reverse that. When I was moving from the place that I was in and moving into this space, I didn't feel ready at all. And when it became available to me, I felt like it was going to be too much for me to bear, because I had so much responsibility in my business that I didn't understand why God was trying to like upgrade me basically before the comfort. We're here to be here for each other in different ways. And if you're judging who it's coming from, you're gonna miss the message, because he always spoke life into me. And there was so many times since then that he spoke crazy life into me. I went through so many different things, whether it be business or personal. And every time he would always recognize like when something was different about me. And he'd sit there, he'd have a conversation with me. But one thing he always referenced was how much God loved me, how much that he could see me. He spoke life into me consistently. And I feel like if you are so set and focused on what spirituality looks like on somebody or where they're at in their spiritual journey, you'll miss what angel is along the way for you to basically be supported through it. So it's like, I may not have a mentor in this specific way in this title, but I get mentors every single day in different ways for me to learn how to stay open and to receive love and to give love and not to
able to hear it.
Yes, and to hear it and not to limit myself to what I think love is, you know, because especially in this generation, we kind of, well, it's become transactional. Yeah, and I feel like it's allowed people to live a comfortable lifestyle with broken mirrors. So it's really like, you have smoke and mirrors on the inside. It's we have a great house, we have all these, you know, brands and all these things going on, whatever, but I'm unhappy inside. And I feel like I never wanted to be that person. I didn't want to be that person that had all this shit going on, but internally,
the heart is broken.
The heart is broken. Yeah. Because when I was growing up, that's what I felt like it was for me. It was really like I'm working. And so many people can see all these great things in me, but they don't see like the little girl that just needs a hug. Like I don't even need, you know.
I don't cry. I just need to cry.
I just need to cry. And I don't think that I ever had that space to cry because I only could be the adult. Like it was really like being your own. You know, I was raised by my grandparents, but my grandparents are now in their 80s. So when I was growing up, you know, they were in their 60s, you know, they're old, you know, it was like I kind of already had that go on. And, you know, it wasn't a responsibility of them, gratefully, you know, they were able to take that on and I pay homage to that. But it was a lot of self-learning throughout that journey. So I feel like when I became an entrepreneur and I really kind of went down my spiritual journey, I realized how important like crying was because it wasn't such a negative connotation. It wasn't like something's bad here. It's like I'm feeling, like allow myself to feel these things. Even my best friend is my best friend because of the fact that there would be times where I was so used to being an introvert and not, you know, expressing what it was that I had going on, that she would just sit in the space with me and do nothing, or we could go through a whole therapy session, or we could honestly just be and do whatever it is that we wanted to do. And I learned like what sisterhood was. Wow, I really learned like, wow, you have people now, you know? And for me, it was just really hard for me to receive that initially because I was like pushing it away. It was like, you
didn't know what that was
I don't know how to receive this, you know? And it when it translated, I'm just grateful. This is why I say there's angels in everybody, because it wasn't communicated by me to say like, I don't know how to receive this. It was just understood through her and watching my actions and her self journey and seeing like, these are all the things that I saw, you know, throughout my grief process of me or, you know, different things like that. So I feel like that's why I say sisterhood and even just friendships are so important because we all learn something different from God. Like we could literally see the same message, but we can leave with different takeaways from it. And we can be here for each other throughout the process to be that shoulder to cry on or to be, you know, that confidant or whatever it is. And even in love, it's the same thing. So
I feel like I could go on a whole nother hour.
So we need part two.
We need part two. Are you coming back for part two?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, no, for real. I have one question I want to end with. What is the 3 to 5 year? I mean, we kind of talked about that. You're going to be in Europe, right? I don't know. Like, what is the 3 to 5 year?
Okay, if I'm honest, let me just, we'll use this as my manifestation moment so we can reference this back. So I would say 3 to 5 years married.
Okay.
I would love a little boy. I want a son. And I definitely would say that I'm running several businesses with my partner. I definitely want to bring my child into legacy, and I want a life of ease for the baby. So hopefully I am multi-millionaire at that moment.
You will be.
Yes. I definitely speak that over myself for sure. And thank you so much. And I definitely believe we all will be. Yes, we're in this room, we're having this moment. But I definitely feel like it's time for like a family of my own to create like new generations.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 26. So I say that I want marriage and a kid in 35 years, but I'm like, girl, 35 years might come and I might be like, I just don't want to be that person that has accomplished so much in life financially and in business and does not have that. Because for me now, it's all about family. And it's always been like that in that sense. I just didn't get that experience with my family. So I want to create that. Like I crave that with my friendships and things like that, which is I've experienced, I think, love in its purest form through platonic relationships. And I've learned real family through that. Dynamic that I'm just eager to create a family of my own.
You're
and so
ready.
I definitely feel like if anybody follows me throughout my journey, they'll see like in my dedications and things like that, like I've honestly spoken names over things and really just like put in the details, like this family is here present and we're about to be doing shit our way.
I love that.
Arraya, I'm a new woman. I'm a new woman because of this conversation.
Yeah, I'm moved for real. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Tell everybody like where they can follow you, find you, shop with you, all that stuff.
Yeah. So anybody can follow me on Twitter. It's Arraya Hope. So it's ArrayaHope. And then on Instagram, the Glamor Blueprint. I am on TikTok now. It's Glamor Blueprint. My business page is the Glamor Blueprint Source, which is where you'll find like clientele and just different pieces that'll drop. But the main thing, which I hope everybody goes and sees, is my website. So it's www.theglamorblueprint.com. And I have different writing pieces on there where it tells stories of my pieces. And
and your journal, your journal.
My journal's on there. And then I have different portfolios of just the creations along the way of what I've done, throughout the brand. So.
Yes.
Well, this is only the beginning. You're coming back.
You're coming back. And then also we're doing a holiday event, so we definitely want to invite you.
Yes, please. I'm definitely game. I love what you guys have created here.
Thank you so much.
I definitely was very interested. Even you guys saying Woman of Tomorrow, because that just means like today you may be one person and then tomorrow you may become that whole version of your highest self. I think that's a beautiful name. And I also think that what you guys have done, because even you, I not to go on a tangent, but in the past, I actually, when you had the leg gloves, I had used it on one of my clients, and you were booming when you were designing, and I think that's beautiful. And I was even telling my best friend, like, I love how you created your own field in that space, because that's not something that I saw done before. You know, like, granted, you have different designs that you see throughout fashion, which
they repeat.
They're repeating, whichever. Yeah. But I feel like it was a moment. It was a time in fashion. You definitely had the top of the girls in it. And I think that's
I mean, I'm gonna circle back. I had, because it was one of those things where I was like, I wanted a company that I could scale differently.
Yeah.
It was a lot to create leather pieces domestically.
Yep.
And so I'm like, okay. I had a couple of people that wanted to fund it. Those things fell through. So I was like, I got to fund this myself.
Yeah.
I know how much I need to take this global in the way. I didn't want it to be mom and pop. It was just too expensive. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So I transitioned into where I am now to only be able to circle back and be able to.
I get it, 100%. And that's why I think it's so important, and I think it's great that you're able to even have that in your experience, because even for myself, like when I spoke to God, it was like, God, if this is not the season of me to be designing, but I'm supposed to go back to a 9-to-5 to make this thing work in the end, that I'm willing enough to do that, because I think that we put this pressure on ourselves of how it should be done. Like, okay, it's got to get done, so it's got to be done right now. And it's like, everything's not right now, though. It's maybe in this season, this is what this is. And the next season, you're learning something else. Because when I was working on the sales floors, I was learning so much from others in respects to, one, how I was able to show up in a room and be received.
Okay.
How I was able to be received in the room, and then also just learning what people craved in fashion, like what was speaking to people. So I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Okay, group hug. Let's do a group hug. Thank you so